Protesters clash with DPS at the state capitol. It's due to different views on bills that aim to keep people from dying from fentanyl overdoses.
We're letting people across our state die without the tools that we know work.
Why there's conflict at the capitol over ways to save lives. Progress in the push to change how the state enforces marijuana laws. The latest on legislation to reduce the penalty for possession. Medical debt in Texas. Senate legislation would require doctors to give patients itemized invoices to ensure billing transparency. What lawmakers are hearing from patients. And a showdown over property tax relief. A dispute between the speaker and the lieutenant governor heats up on Twitter. Why the outcome could determine whether we see a special session.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Protesters clashed with staffers and DPS at the state capitol Thursday. At issue, legislation that aims to save lives by preventing fentanyl overdoses. The protests highlight differences over how to reduce fentanyl deaths, pitting advocates for harm reduction against those calling for tougher penalties. Monica Madden looks at how the fight is playing out at the capitol.
A Capitol clash Thursday morning over a stalled bill in the Senate to legalize fentanyl testing strips. It's a tool currently classified as drug paraphernalia in Texas, but it's used to detect if other drugs are laced with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that can be deadly. The group cramming into Senator Joan Huffman's office, who's a member of the Criminal Justice Committee where the bill is stalled.
She has to pass this bill. This is serious.
Carolyn Williams lost her son to fentanyl just 2 months ago.
It's heartbreaking. If it happened to me, it could happen to anyone.
While the House overwhelmingly approved decriminalizing fentanyl strips earlier this month, the group stormed the House gallery for a different demand.
No more drug war!
They're opposed to a bill the House gave initial approval to. It increases penalties for distributing fentanyl, including possible murder charges if someone overdoses. Opponents say that's not the right way to solve the problem.
So you cannot bust all of the dealers and then find a way to treat all the people who use drugs. People who use drugs might also sell them.
But on the floor, lawmakers backed the idea that tougher penalties will save lives.
Members, on behalf of all of our family members who have died innocently by taking medication laced with fentanyl, on behalf of all of our friends, we're here today to tell the people who deal that drug, we're going to pass a piece of legislation. We're coming after you.
Monica joins us now. We heard from the harm reduction advocate in your story, but take us a little deeper into their argument. Why are they against tougher penalties for this deadly drug?
Well, Josh, the group says that this doesn't really address the core reasons for why people use drugs and turn to drugs in the first place. You know, talking about the variety of different factors, whether it be family, housing crises that lead to homelessness, just a lot of different reasons that go into that. And then also the group points to, historically speaking, how the war on drugs affected the incarceration rates in the United States. And they think by criminalizing the people who are most likely selling these drugs, as you heard that man say, they're probably using them. It's just going to lead to more people in prison without addressing some of the root causes of why people are turning to drugs in the first place.
Now, Governor Greg Abbott made fighting fentanyl deaths one of his emergency priorities for the legislative session. Where does he fit into this dispute?
Well, it's really interesting, Josh, because specifically on the point of fentanyl testing strips, the governor previously was opposed to that last legislative session and even before he launched his re-election campaign for governor this term. But he has had a shift in his mindset. Not exactly sure why the reasons are. So Governor, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on and explain why. But, you know, he is now open to the fentanyl testing strips and legalizing that, and talked about that during when he outlined his emergency priority items this session. He thinks that will be a tool that will help as this crisis continues to plague Texas and communities across the nation. And at the same time, though, he also is for increasing those penalties, those criminal penalties for those who sell fentanyl and distribute fentanyl. So he's backing both of these efforts, and it'll be interesting to see where the legislature ends up on these issues, Josh.
Of course, we saw the protesters who were in Senator Huffman's office. What did she have to say in her response?
Well, Senator Huffman was not physically present in her office when the protesters came. She was doing other work at the time, which is pretty common in the legislature. You won't often find the lawmakers in their office, but her staffers were there, and they said that they wouldn't comment on her particular position on this issue. I did ask her staffers for a comment from the senator on where she stands on this, and we did not hear back in time, Josh.
All right, Monica, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going in depth, the University of Texas project is sparking change in the way we report overdoses. TexCope is a digital platform designed to improve overdose data in Texas and help drive response. They combine EMS data with reports from the community and outreach workers. Dr. Casey Claiborne, a research scientist at UT Austin, tells us they are working toward partnering with Travis, Williamson, and Hayes counties so they can eventually expand across the state.
It's truly the community coming together to track overdoses, but more so to give the community a voice so that we know how to better target our resources for naloxone, for example, for all of our outreach efforts. We can have a more equitable distribution of our resources.
TexCope also offers mental health services, information on how to respond to overdose and substance abuse treatment, and prevention efforts. House members also passed a bill to change how the state enforces laws for possession of cannabis. House Bill 218 makes it so anyone caught with up to an ounce of marijuana would face a Class C misdemeanor charge. That would mean no jail time and a fine only. Class B misdemeanor would be between 1 and 2 ounces. Class A misdemeanor for anything between 2 and 4 ounces. Anything over 4 would start getting into different felony levels. Similar legislation passed the House in 2019 and again in 2021. Both times those bills failed to clear the Senate. To give you an idea of what Texans think, this is what a poll out of the University of Houston discovered at the start of the year. More than 80% said possession of small amounts of marijuana should be punishable only by citation and a fine. 2/3 of those surveyed approved legalizing marijuana for those 21 and up. Lawmakers move closer to an unprecedented investment into school safety.
The state of Texas must make fundamental changes the way we protect our school communities.
Why some people worry about the potential risk of part of the plan to protect children. A dispute between two top state leaders evolves into name-calling and shirtless photos on social media. Sounds silly, but there's actually a lot at stake. How the debate over property tax relief is heating up as time runs down on the session.